Lee Miller was a topless model turned wartime photographer way back in World War II, and this film conveys her story from the meeting of her husband to her iconic photos taken in a concentration camp. Film fans YouTube, hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh, your Movie Apprentice, and today I am looking at Lee, directed by Kuras, starring the talents of Kate Winslet, Andy Samberg, and Andrea Riseborough. This is a movie I knew nothing going into it, but the trailer looked very interesting. I love the story of highlighting women in history, especially over the last century or so, that I have never heard of. So I was very much looking forward to what this film could present. And does it present much? Unfortunately, this had a ceiling that it failed to hit. Before I get into it though, if you like what you're seeing on the channel, click the like button and subscribe for more video reviews coming like this all the time. But without further ado, Lee is a movie that tries to do too much. One flaw it has is the fact it does what several biopics have done and few have done well, where they do the interview section cutting in between the past and the present. That has always been a bit of a red flag for me when it comes to biographical movies. This is classed as a docudrama. It just doesn't work for me because rather than showing us the story and allow us to connect with them, it's just them telling us the story and the relationships they have with all these people. There are people she forms bonds with in this that we see an introduction scene. We get a bit of the voiceover saying, "We became friends, we became partners," and then that will be it. And as a result, that means some what seem to be intended to be emotional moments in later parts of the movie when it comes to reunions and the bonds shared between the characters, it doesn't come across that way. It feels very, very hollow. For example, the relationship between Lee Miller and David Sherman, a fellow photographer and journalist from Life magazine that basically becomes her partner in crime whilst on the front lines. Their interaction is a very brief introduction. We are told they are partners, but we never really get to see just a scene or two of them just shooting the breeze or just having a conversation. We're expected to really buy this bond that the two share together. It's a very plutonic bond, and they go through literal hell together. They are photographers on a war zone. Early on in the year, we had Civil War, which was a harrowing look at war journalism set in an American Civil War. And that film was fantastic in how it executed both the psychological impact it takes on the photographers and the mentality and the relationship and bonds they share with each other. This film has none of that, and this is based on an actual person that existed during arguably modern history's darkest time. It just doesn't have any emotional impact. There is one moment where I feel this film does show what it was capable of, and that is a scene at a concentration camp where we see Lee and David enter into a room and we see their reactions. We don't see what they see. It's just their immediate reaction, then the need to take a photo of what they are seeing. And then after this photo is taken, we see the photo in the interview section later on in the movie. There was no words, there was no descriptions. It is just this simple moment of emoting and tension and silence that really builds to the moment of seeing this image. If it was a lot of that, I thought it could have been a much better movie. This is a movie all about how her photos never really got to see the light of day in the UK press due to bureaucracy and just trying to get people to move on. Instead, it just showed several overriding plot threads that just never really gel well together. They never flesh out her relationship with these people. There are moments where it just feels like they are speeding through things a little bit too much. And there's a couple of other elements in the film that I don't think were entirely needed. She is taking photos through one of history's most horrid times, seeing a modern warfare in a deadly worldwide conflict, yet they have to tie in a sort of connection between violence woman experience. And granted, I do appreciate the film doesn't shy away from the fact that the soldiers weren't all heroes. Like, whilst they beat the Nazis, and we can agree that the Nazis were awful, it didn't paint the Allies in a completely positive light either. It very much shows the dark side that soldiers would do to people, especially women. but it feels like that takes away from her photos, and the caption at the end explaining her story implies that this film is supposed to all be about her photos. But we have some shooting, parenting stuff, we have trauma thrown in there as well. Feels like it's trying to blend too much when it could have simply been a story focusing on her life, giving us little scenes to carry through. Give us 10 minutes of her getting that job at the Vogue magazine and her building that relationship with her boss. Build up the steady bond that her and David obtain throughout the runtime, and show her fight to get on the front line, because she is not supposed to be on the front line. In fact, the military are very against sending a woman to the front line. Yet, out of nowhere, they say, "You're going to the front line now." I don't feel there's any build to that. A general sees one conversation she has with a wounded soldier, and apparently she's on her way. Was that really lined up? Or did he change his mind because of seeing this conversation? It just feels very messy. Now, my biggest thing I would say I really liked about this film, which is a weird thing to say I liked because it's not something I see many reviewers talk about, but it was a very pretty film to look at because the color palette was really good. Sky movies and TV shows tend to have this very crisp color grading to it, and how it blends light and darkness together, and it gives this sheen that just feels very gritty and very real. It very much felt like I was experiencing a wartime movie. It very much felt like the colors just popped out. It was a very nice movie to look at, especially when we got to some of the more harrowing scenes. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. This is a movie that just doesn't really focus on Lee Miller. It's all about Lee Miller, but it feels like it's never truly focusing on the photos that they really wanted to bring to the world. It was, here are a few photos, and here is a bunch of other stuff to go on top of that. And it's just a bit overcrowded for my liking. Strip away the interview segment and what that entails. Doesn't feel like Lee knew where to set its focus. Before I get into my grade, if you like seeing our channel, click the like button and subscribe for more video reviews like this coming all the time. But without further ado, let's grade this. Lee is a movie that had so much potential. Kate Winslet is a great actress, and yes, while he is known as Jake Rhodes from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Andy Samberg is a good actor. He has moments in this where he really does show that he can do great acting. He showed it in Palm Springs a few years ago. He can do the serious stuff, but unfortunately doesn't feel like his character is ever fleshed out enough to really warrant them emotional, serious moments. The many things it tries to cram in here, this should have been showing the world this is someone that existed. There are photos that never got released because of British bias, and here are the photos, and here's the story of her taking these photos. But it just feels like they had to add so much on top and so many connotations that it became very difficult to really enjoy the film too much. It just felt like this could have been a great movie, but unfortunately, with the way it tries to overcrowd so much in there, it falls way short of my expectations. I'm gonna have to say that Lee is a lukewarm cup of tea. So Lee, have you seen it? If you have, let me know your thought down in the comments below, and make sure you hit that bell notification so you don't miss any more reviews like this one, and sometimes the odd video essay as well. But until next time, everybody, I am Josh, I have been Movie Apprentice, and I'll see you all in the next video.